All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 7 of the Pumped Up Podcast. Today we have the Sports Illustrated writer, host of the Film Network, Patreon writer, and just all around sports cover, Brooks Austin. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, no doubt, gentlemen. How are y'all doing today?
Doing good.
Doing great. So, former offensive lineman, collegiate offensive lineman turned, did you say media personality? How would you put it?
Yeah, I would. It's hard to quantify exactly what it is that I do and what all the things that I do. Yeah, to just kind of give you a rundown, I'm a former college football player, played Division II football up at Shorter University. And I guess my niche, if you will, is kind of explaining football in its complexities to the simplest forms, right? Bringing football, making a complex game simple is what my YouTube bio will say. And as far as like what my classifications are, I had like a hard time explaining to people what I do, what I am, what I do. Am I a recruiting analyst? Am I a beat reporter in the Georgia space? Am I a YouTube personality? Am I a content creator? I'm all of the above. That's why I just kind of classify myself as a media personality. And I think that's probably the lane that I will remain in, unless I venture my way into coaching at some point in time soon. So yeah, that's kind of a rundown of who I am and kind of what I do. All of my content revolves around college football, specifically Georgia, but there's some national aspects to it as well. So yeah, it's kind of the rundown of what it is that I am and who I do or what I do.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed because, I've been keeping up. I'm a Georgia fan personally, so I've been keeping up with the whole space and all that for a while. And I've noticed how over would you say the past year or so, your whole brand has really taken off?
I got into the Georgia space in March of 2019. I had 400 followers on Twitter. And I think I had maybe much less than that on subscribers on YouTube. And I would say we've had exponential growth starting in 2021. The 2022 season was just a pile-on effect. But yeah, man, I don't know when things started to click or when things started to happen. But there's been a multitude of changes and decisions that we've made as a brand and as a content creator along this kind of journey that were like extremely vital to the overall success of the company as a whole. One of which being the Patreon addition to things and creating my own subscription model and stuff like that we own. So there was a lot of decisions that went into it, and a lot of turns and twists that have kind of led us to where we are, including like you guys gave me a shout out for this studio we built. These are all risk and investments that we put into our own product. When I say we, I mean me, that I put in my own product and risks that I take and expenses that I put out of my own budget to make our product as good as we can on top of the content in and of itself, right? Because we all flip up cameras and we all have microphones and we all have the ability to give opinions nowadays. It's the variety of different ways that I've kind of set myself apart that have been the key, I think, to my success.
I would say, yeah, the variety and the quality of what you do, because you're a unique person in what you do with just specifically on your YouTube, talking about, your Q&As, people that really just don't know football. And like you said, you can explain it for the everyday person to understand. And it's sort of, you said you might venture into coaching. It's like you are coaching just the everyday person. So definitely.
And that's the goal, right? The goal when I get in front of a camera or when I get in front of a board in particular, like when we're doing X's and O's stuff, the goal is to treat the audience or treat the viewer as if we are standing in front of a college room or a position room or a position meeting or an offensive meeting room. And we are standing in front of our pupils and our students and our players. And we're trying to explain them what is going on, what is happening, where we need to get things corrected. And you could say that is something that is, I definitely didn't invent it. The idea of film study, I definitely did not invent that. I certainly didn't even invent it in the Georgia space. There's people that have been doing it for years at this point. I think the thing that I'm uniquely gifted at is taking the complex, right? Being able to speak really, really high levels of football and bring it down to a kindergarten level. The way I explain it and talk about it or try to talk about it is say, hey, look, I have this super complex topic and we have this super complex schematical system or whatever it is, or film topic or whatever it is. And I want to be able to speak to, if Kirby Smart were to follow and find my content, I want him to be able to be entertained while also being able to speak to the person who just found football 6 months ago and explain to them exactly, and have both of them be able to meet in the middle via me, essentially, or via our product and our topics. And that's been, an extreme jumping point for our career and my career here. I think too many people get into content creation and they just, well, I just want to talk sports with my friends. Well, no shit. Everybody wants to talk sports with their friends, man. How are you going to be the ones that people listen to? Why are people going to come to you? Why are you different? And there was 1,000 reasons why I'm different than other people, but you got to focus on what you're doing and why you are you. And for me, it's always been the film. I've been the film guy from the day one I stepped into the space, and we hammered it down. We hammered it down as hard as we could, and we took gambles along the way to make sure that we were hammering it. I think he's on mute.
Oh, am I? Oh, yeah, we're good. So I guess one of the questions is like, when and like how did you start covering everything about Georgia?
Yeah, so in March of 2019, like I said, I got approached by a gentleman named Mark Pattinson, who's been my boss for the last 4 years, 4.5 years now. And he had seen some of my freelance content. He had seen some of my stuff that I was writing for, at that point, Fansided, covering the NFL draft for a website called NFL Mocks. We were freelancing some podcasts for them. We were doing some articles for them, and Mark found my work and thought we were, a quality publisher. Offered me the opportunity to cover either Georgia or Georgia Tech. I thought that was one of the easiest decisions I've ever made in my life. I chose Georgia. And like I said, at that point, it was 400 followers, and the only thing that I was given was a landing page. It was just, here's your landing page. Here's how we produce articles. Go see what you can make, right? Go see what kind of waves you can make in the industry, and go see what you can do. Go see if you can swim in this water. And it is an extremely overpopulated water stream in the University of Georgia space. There are dozens of people that do what I do, and have been doing it for decades. So I was really, really starting at the bottom of the hill and trying to climb up a really, really tall mountain. And how did we add all of the things? We just kept adding, right? Why did we become a recruiting analyst? Well, because Georgia is one of the top recruiting programs in the country. So we needed to go see as many prospects as we could. So we started seeing as many prospects as we could. So then we got handed a recruiting analyst role and title, right? And then, well, we're seeing all these kids, and all these kids need photos of them taken. So let's become a good photographer too. Let's buy a camera. Let's see if we can get good at that. So we did that. Well, we need video content, and we need people to be watching our video stuff, and we need to build a video platform. Okay, well, let's buy some cameras and get in front of that. Let's get good at being on camera. Let's be good at being in front of a microphone while also maintaining all of the writing and all of the recruiting and all of the photos and all of that stuff, right? Well, we need to build a social media following. Well, let's figure out a way to be good and unique on Twitter as well. So we did that. So all of the bags all the tricks that have been added to the bag, they've not been by design, they've been by necessity. I have been forced into becoming a good photographer because I can't pay a photographer to take photos. I've been forced into being a good writer and good editor because I can't afford to have anyone else do that for me, and it is required as a part of the business, and it's required as part of the content creation here. So all of these different twists and turns have been by necessity, and they've been self-taught. I think that's the other thing that is very unique about me. I do not have journalism degrees. I have a master's in business administration. I am not a journalist. I am someone who has taught themselves how to write and how to be a journalist, and self-taught in that matter. Same thing with my photography. Same thing with my, on-air personality. Same thing with I'm our video editor. We edit all of our videos that we put on social. So all of these tricks, dude, if you're someone who wants to do this, if you're someone who wants to do what I do, by God, you better be freaking good at everything. I had someone tell me, his name's Adam Levko. He is the man who is set up to replace Ernie Johnson on NBA tonight on the TNT broadcast, okay? This is a made man. This is a dude who is going to be a dude in this industry for decades, okay? And Adam Lefko told me when I was you guys' age and doing, small podcasts, he would tell me, he would say, never say no. And I know it sounds simple, but always say yes. Even if you don't know how to do something, always say yes. Even if you don't know if you have time to do it, always say yes. Because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to lead from that opportunity or from that skill set that you've now forced yourself to acquire. So the never say no mentality applied until even portions of today, right? Like we had a busy slate today. Well, we said yes to this. We're going to take time out of this. We're going to do this. We're going to say yes because you don't know, right? So I don't even know what the original question was. How did all these things start? They started by necessity, not by want or need or by a willingness to explore it. It was by a need to do it, a force to do it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that never say no mentality. Because Reese and I know we contacted you through the Elite CFB Now page. We've been doing that for about a year, and then I've been doing a Georgia page for 4 years now, and it's just the opportunities that if you say no, you're just ruining another chance at a connection, which I think you obviously know connections are everything in this industry. So it's definitely big. We've been learning how to do Photoshop, all that stuff. We edit our videos obviously because, we're not going to pay people to edit it. You got to get good at it yourself. I've gone out there. I have a camera. I've been trying to work on that stuff too. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with exactly everything you said. And it's necessity because, if you're not the first to do it, you're the last.
My biggest pet peeve is when young people tell me, oh, I want to do what you do. I just need a platform. What the hell is that? What do you mean you need a platform? You have a platform. It's the internet. Okay?
Yeah.
Go fucking do it. Pardon my language. Just do it. Like, people are like, oh, I'd love to do what you do. Oh, really? Okay. Well, do it. Like, build it in your garage. Sit out in the summer in the heat, right? Like, work 2 jobs. Go do it. I think that's like the thing that is very misconceived about me is, and I don't know if I do a good enough job of explaining it because I wanted to hide it forever. I wanted to hide the fact that I wasn't a full-time employee in the media industry. I wanted to hide the fact that I was working an entire different career to build this one. I wanted to hide. I was embarrassed that I wasn't able to pay my bills off just doing this stuff, despite the fact that people think I had made it, right? But I didn't work. I was working 2 full-time jobs, chasing 2 full careers until January of 2022. We worked 4 years of doing construction management and going into an office and punching the clock and doing that. And then afterwards, working an entirely different work day, like getting home from actual day job that pays bills and pursuing dreams and pursuing careers. Like, it's so easy to say that you want to do this. You have it. Like, you have all the abilities to do it. Okay. Whether or not you are talented enough, or whether or not you're going to have the right breaks, or whether or not you're going to meet the right people, or whether or not you're going to catch the wave of momentum or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if that's the in your cards. I don't know if that's in your future, but the ability to try is certainly there in your reach. Like, you have the ability to try all of these things. It's not that expensive. It's more of a time, like, you got to put time into it and effort into it. And of course you have to be talented. Do not get me wrong. I know I'm talented. I know I can get on a microphone and talk with anybody. I know I can dissect football as well as anybody, but the skill set that sets me apart 1000% is uncommon work ethic and uncommon enthusiasm. Those 2 things.
I saw one of your quotes, or not quotes, but something you said was, there's only one person you think that outworks you, and that's Kirby Smart.
That's it. Like, there is a different level of confidence in this world when you know that you're not the smartest person in the room, but you, by God, you work harder than everybody else. Okay. And I know that. There is no doubt in my mind. I know for a fact there's no one that does what I do that puts more time and effort and thought process and gets after like I do at what I do. There is one person in this entire state of Georgia that I would even put in my hemisphere. His name's Jeremy Johnson. And guess what? That dude is a rocket ship. Like, he is going to have gainful employment in this industry the rest of his life. He saw 30 schools this spring. I saw 35. Okay. And I know that, right? I know those numbers. I ask him, I make sure, because I always want to be working harder than the next guy or the next girl. And there is no secrets. Like, I always used to think it was so funny when guys, and there are people that are going to listen to this and I'm like, God, he's full of cliches. Like, he's full of a bunch of coach speak. And that shit is real, man. Like, the stuff that people say for years and years and centuries, that stuff works for a reason. Okay. Be the hardest worker in the room. It does work.
100% agree. So with that, I guess you just mentioned your spring tour, your 35 schools that you covered. What was your number one takeaway, I guess, from that experience? And how How long was that, the time period for?
I was 17 days. So
Dear
17 days, we saw 35 schools. I put 4,000 miles on the tachometer in the truck. So we got after it. The biggest takeaway for me is, why in the hell would you ever coach college football? Why would you ever work the schedules that those football coaches work when you can come back to Carrollton High School, or you can come back to Lowndes, or you can go back to Colquitt County, or you can go get a job at Grayson, or whatever these schools are, and you can make $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year. Why on earth would you ever go be a position coach or pursue life as a coordinator in college football when you can make six figures in your hometown at your local 7A high school? Because football means that much in the state of Georgia now. Like, there are so much time and resources put into high school football in the state of Georgia nowadays that, I mean, I wouldn't be so. If you told me 10 years from now, Kirby Smart was the head coach at Bainbridge High School, I put the odds of that higher than him being in the NFL or him being at some other college job. It's just such a grind right now for these guys to consistently pump out successful seasons in college football that I just don't know if it's sustained success. Other than that, I just have a blast every time I go do that. I have a joy about it. I learn which college programs are investing the right amount of time in the right places. Right. I think last spring for me, I saw a lot of the Florida Gators, and I thought, you know what, that's going to be good. They're in the right spots. They're in Atlanta. They're recruiting great football players. They've got momentum. I'm seeing Florida Gator shit. Well, guess what? Guess what I didn't see a lot this spring? I didn't see a lot of Florida this spring. I don't know where they went. I don't know what they were doing, but I didn't see them this spring. I might have missed them, but it's hard to miss. You know who I saw a lot of? Florida State. You know I saw a lot of? UConn. Saw a lot of UConn down here.
That's
A lot of UConn. Okay, saw some BYU down here. You know who else I found? Georgia Tech has offered every single kid south of the Mason-Dixon. Now, have they offered every single right kid? Probably not. They're missing on a couple. But yeah, those are the kind of things that I noticed. Like Florida State heavily involved down, particularly in South Georgia, as they should be. And Georgia, I saw Georgia more than any other staff. Not because I plan my days around them, because I cover them. No, my schedule is my schedule during the spring. We go. Whoever we see, that's fine. But we do not set it around them. And somehow, some way, miraculously, I always see more Georgia coaches than anywhere else. You know why? Because they work. They work that ass off, man. They work that ass off every single spring and every single fall on the recruiting trail, and it pays dividends for sure.
Yeah, there's a reason they're the back-to-back national champions, favorites for this season. So you mentioned FSU. Reese goes to FSU. I'm going to Georgia. So we love to hear that FSU and Georgia. But
Good to hear that they're actually out there recruiting right now. Thank goodness.
but so I was trying to think, something struck me that you said, but what was I gonna say? I forgot. Were you at the Dylan Raiola Jefferson?
I was. So
You weren't
that's another example of the differences in my team and what we got going on, and some others. Some others in this space have almost a dozen people that help them out consistently, right? Track different things, follow different kids, track information, let people know what's going on. They have meetings. They have, direct messages and group messages with all their employees, and they have teams. Well, with us, it's really like 3 or 4 guys. Okay. So, and it's really me kind of point guarding to 3 or 4 guys. It's not a big immersive team like some of these people have. So I missed the NICAR, I guess, announcement that they were going to go do that. I guess there was some Instagram live that some beat reporters were watching, and they found out, and then they showed up the next morning, they were ready.
Yeah.
That wasn't my case. Okay. My case was I had just finished my 17th day on the recruiting trail. I had just seen 35 schools. My ass was finally taking a break for the first time in 17 days that morning. So I'm driving around getting the wife and kids breakfast that morning, and I start getting alerts from all my competitors that I have on alerts. Hey, look at this throw from Dylan Raiola. And clearly they're at Jefferson High School. I'm 10 minutes down the road from Jefferson High School. I had no socks on, no shoes. I had shoes in the back seat of the truck. But I called my wife and said, honey, I got to go. Like, we got to go. I know I've been gone for 17 days, but we got to go. We got to go. I got to go over here, and I got to do this. And I hauled ass over there, and I showed up in the last 10 minutes, saw like 2 or 3 throws, got an interview, got out. Okay, but you got to go, right? You still have to go. And I mentioned my wife there because you two are young men, okay? And if there are young people listening to this podcast that want to do what I do, boy, you better stay away from marriage unless you got a rock, okay? Because I got me a rock. And my wife rarely ever says, honey, can you come home? Okay, because she knows. She understands what it is. She understands what the life is and what I'm about and how I got to go. And she understands that. But if you don't have someone that understands that, you are screwed. You cannot do this. You will not be able to do this. So make sure you have someone in your corner that doesn't pull reins on you, but instead straps a saddle on you and says, all right, motherfucker, let's go. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. It's again, it's that yes, always say yes mentality that, like you said, your wife agrees with that too. So that's good stuff. I definitely, no, it's business world's crazy, and the whole football world is crazy as well. So with your connections in the interview there, what do you find most important about, building relationships with these recruits while you're going to these schools?
So I approach these things differently. Okay. I know a lot of people that do my job that are super direct message dependent. They ask for interviews constantly with people. They're always there to get something from the kid, if that makes sense. And that's their job. I understand that. But when I go out, okay, and I go out on the recruiting trail, I am there to be an asset, not there to be a leech. Okay. Not saying that other people are. I'm just telling you how I feel about this. When I show up to a high school football program, okay, I first and foremost want to learn. I want to learn about what the football programs do and how they're coaching, what they're going about, because I'm a football guy first. But I also want to learn about the football player, who they are as a person and what they do. I'm there to evaluate, okay? But third, and probably most importantly, like I said, I'm there to be an asset, which means I'm there to facilitate photos and boost your brand as a football player. I'm there to get to know you and understand who you are before I ever put a camera in front of your face and ask you about your recruitment process, okay? But probably the thing that I'm becoming most known for that nobody really knows and kids don't really know unless they pay attention and they're smart. Dude, my camera, the video that I take when I'm out at a high school football practice, you have no idea how many college coaches that goes to. You have none. You have absolutely no idea how many college coaches saw that I went to 35 schools this spring and wanted MP4 files of athletes that I saw. Hey, what does he look like when I'm not around? You know what I mean? What does he look like when the power G's not on the sideline and he knows that a coach is watching him? He just thinks some slapdick with a camera's over there, okay? That's what he thinks. That's what a lot of kids think when I show up. They think I'm just some other recruiting guy. And I am. I'm there to facilitate recruiting information. I'm there to take photos. I'm there to get heights and weights. I'm there to do all that stuff. But in reality, I'm there so when the next SEC coordinator I see at the next school asks me about you, I can give him a realistic evaluation of what I saw. You know what I mean? That's what I do all that stuff for. That's how I do all that stuff for. And that's kind of my recruiting style when I go to schools. Now, that's me, because I know I can sit down with a coordinator from school A and we can talk football, right? I can give him honest opinions about football players and know that he is going to not only value that opinion, but know that I know my stuff, not that I'm full of shit. I don't know how many people that do my job can do that. Okay. In fact, I know for a fact that when I go to places and I see other media members and college football coaches, I'm the one standing with the college football coaches and the media members are standing elsewhere. Okay. Because they don't value those relationships. They don't care. That's not their job. Their job is to cover the kids and put, stuff out on the kids. That's not the way I've ever looked at my job. I've been there as a facilitator, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I noticed, so you were on the Real Talk podcast as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that one of those things where you'd say it's because of that different approach that you have to
100%.
Your relationships that they had you on?
Yeah, I'm the only credentialed media member I think that's ever been on there. I'm the only media member, non-football player that they've had, other than like Georgia football coaches and stuff. And you're 100% correct. That willingness for them to invite me in was 100% based out of respect for the work that I do. Okay. And think about this, guys. I get on camera every Monday and Tuesday during the season, and I am critical about the play of the football players on the camera and on the screen. Okay. Very publicly, out for everybody to hear. Okay. And there's been multiple times where, you know, Ryland didn't play that much, but there have been multiple times where I'm ripping Tate Ratledge a new ass on film. Like, this is bad. This can't happen. This has got to be better. Okay. And this is how we get better. And for him to stand there face to face, and for him to say, you know what, this guy's right. He is correct in his approach. And I'm not mad. I'm acceptive of his criticism. And I'm so acceptive of his criticism that I will invite him onto my platform. Dude, like that, yeah. But I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about it, because that means my work is real. That means my work is good, right? It's not just good, it's great. My work is good enough to where college football players can look at me being critical about them and say, he's right, without ever being in the room, without ever even knowing. It's why I've always worried and always had problems with companies like Pro Football Focus. How can you establish a grade on something if you don't know the curriculum? How can you put a grade on an assignment if you don't know what the assignment was? Okay, if you can look at a left guard and say, oh, well, that guy beat him. Well, did he beat him, or was he supposed to get beat because it's the way they coached him that way, right? They're trying to set it up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know the assignment, so how do you know the execution type of deal? It's why we don't do grades. We just do basic fundamentals, okay? If the fundamentals are wrong, the execution is going to be wrong, so we're going to attack that kind of thing. But yeah, man, to have an open invite to a place of content like that, definitely confirmed I was doing this stuff the right way, in my opinion. It's the closest football game, right? But it was also the matchup that gave Georgia the biggest problems. Like, if you went into last year, the only way to score on Georgia defensively was to throw bombs. Like, say, downset hut and chuck it up. That's what we called it. Downset hut, chuck it up. That was the offense that was required to have any type of success against Georgia. Think about it. Missouri had a semblance of offensive success. All they had was one big run, okay, and then 3 big pass plays. That was it, the whole game, all right? Same thing for even Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech had a couple of successful offensive drives in the end of that season last year. What were they doing? They were just throwing bombs out of the slot to that little speedy joker that ended up in the transfer portal because he's too good for Tech. So, like, all of those things were the reasons that Ohio State was a very, very scary matchup. So, yeah, I mean, it was the most highly contested and bad matchup for Georgia, and they still snuck out of it. It was looking ugly there for a while too. There were some moments in that football game. Twice they're down 14 points with Ohio State having the football. One of which I think Georgia, that was the timeout for Kirby Smart. He comes in there and calls the timeout on 4th down. They on the punt. They save the fake punt, get the ball back. That was one. They go down and score, make it a 7-point game. And then the other one, they're down 14 with the ball back in the second half, and Kenny McIntosh goes on an 80-yard run, remember, and then falls down right before the goal line. Those were all what I admire last year about Monken, and I know this you were asking about Ohio State, but that game in particular, Georgia's schedule set up to the point to where Georgia didn't necessarily have to pull out all the tricks and all the stops all year long. So when they needed winners against Ohio State, they needed that Arian Smith, like where he cooked the safety. They had that in the playbook all week. It was going to be called, and it was going to score, but they had to call it when they absolutely needed it. And they absolutely needed it at that point when he scored. It was right after that timeout on the punt. And then the run for Kenny McIntosh. They absolutely needed that one. That was in the playbook all game to take advantage of the way Ohio State was loading the front side of play action. Okay. And they immediately hit it when they needed it. You can't call these plays back to back. You can't call these plays when you're up 7. You can't call these plays unless you absolutely need them. And that's beautiful coordinating. That's what that is. So yeah, that was a national title-esque game. And it was a title game that required perfection from a lot of people. It required perfection in that 4th quarter drive from Stetson. It required perfection from the offense coordinator, like we just described. And it required perfection from Kirby Smart. That timeout call on that 4th down it's the most impactful play I've seen a coach make on a football game in years. Coaches are they supposed to be hay in the barn territory on Saturdays, boys? You're supposed to show up and let the work Monday through Friday show on Saturday. You are there to control clock, and that's it. Very rarely do you see coaches make that kind of impact. And for him to do that, that's exactly why they won a national title.
So I was thinking three things while you're just talking. One thing on that punt timeout, yeah, there were 12 Ohio State people players on the field. I think we noticed that later. I don't know how that got away from the rest, but two questions really. One, what do you think about the difference between, Monken and Bobo? And I think I've heard you say your opinion on this. I just want to ask for people that are listening. And then what do you think about why does Stetson get the hate that he does? Because I swear he is, in my eyes, a top 5 quarterback in that draft.
Because he's an old man. He's an old man.
All right, so it's a couple of things, in my opinion. The most important thing is this one. I spent 90 minutes with Stetson Bennett in a format like this, where we're chopping it up, we're talking. Only about an hour of that was with the red light on and we're recording. So I'm like hanging out with this dude. We're like chopping shop. I interviewed him for a good 45 minutes before we even watched football. We're talking. I got done 90 minutes after that. I had no idea who that dude was. Knew nothing about him. Didn't understand him. Couldn't figure out his personality. Could not. And I think that right there is part of the reason why he is the way he is, why he's misunderstood, because it's really, really hard to understand him. The terminology and the word that I've always used with him is eclectic, meaning like it's erratic. It's brand new every day. Stetson Bennett is a brand new version of himself every single day. I think the people that know him best probably would tell you they don't feel like they really know him. So that's really, really hard to evaluate at the quarterback position, because this is a position that is supposed to be some leadership position. It's supposed to be some outgoing position. It's supposed to be a, hey, everyone looks to you to know what they are type of position. And if they don't know who you are, how are they supposed to know who they are kind of a deal, right? So I think that really hurt him. I think the other thing is that he wasn't a highly touted recruit because he was before Baker Mayfield. He was before Kyler Murray. He was before Bryce Young, right? I think people fail to realize that 5 stars were not able to happen at 6 foot, 5'11", whatever, prior to those people winning Heismans and those people being first overall draft picks, and the NFL stopping the stigma on small quarterbacks. It didn't happen on the high school ranks with people like Bryce Young until it happened with Baker Mayfield being the number 1 overall draft pick, where people were like, oh, you don't have to be 6'5" anymore? Oh, you don't have to be 240 pounds anymore? Oh, you don't have to throw it 85 yards anymore. You just have to be a great football player? Like, those kind of things changed the ranking system. So I think today, if Stetson Bennett were in the state of Georgia, he probably goes to different camps and he probably throws in front of various different coaches, and he probably receives a lot more offers than he did, because he always has had a lively arm. I think that's the one misconception about him. There are people that don't know him or people who haven't seen him throw the football. That ball jumps. Like, it comes out of his hand. It comes out of his hand like an NFL guy. It does. So there's a lot of misconceptions about him, but I think most of them are born in the fact that you don't know him. It's hard to know him. It's hard to sit across from Stetson Bennett for however long and come away with some type of inkling on who that person is. And that's really, really hard to invest in.
And then, so for the
you asked me about Bobo. Let's talk about Bobo and Monken. Monken, without a doubt, in my mind, is one of the top 32 to 35 human beings on the planet in terms of passing concepts, knowing how to design them and when to call them. It's one thing to know how to design winners, right? It's another thing to know when to call them. That's coordinating. It's not just play design. Coordinating is when to call things, right? It's the definition of coordinating. Literally. Anyways, the difference is I think you're trading off like a guy who is 1,000% 1 of 1 or 1 of 32, if you will, in the passing game concepts, for someone who has shown over years and years and years and decades at this point that he knows how to design college run concepts, which is Bobo. Bobo is an elite run game concept designer. There will be more times on Saturday this fall where for every single time last year you said, holy shit, that Georgia receiver is wide open, you're going to see and say the same thing about, oh my God, look how big that hole was for that running back, right? Because it's about finding run looks that you like. It's about getting defenses into positions where you know that you're going to have success. That is how you design plays and then call them to win. And he does a really, really good job of doing that. And I was just talking about how Monken had the ability to kind of pull the trick out of the bag like once or twice a game, because that's all he really needed to do. Well, Bobo's been at places the last like 3 or 4 stops, particularly on the recruiting or on a coordinating basis, where he was having to design like 7 winners in a row just to get the fucking ball into the red zone.
All right, so another sort of double question. I wanted to ask, final question of the episode. What do you think the impact with both Dylan Raiola committing #1 quarterback and having, okay, I don't want to pronounce this. Puglisi, okay. Because I wasn't sure if it's Puglisi. So having Ryan Puglisi, he's so dedicated to the program. So what do you think the impact of having 2 Elite 11 quarterbacks on this 2024 class, what do you think that makes for the people around them?
So it's not the first time it's happened, even at Georgia. I mean, Georgia had in 2008's Elite 11 finals, they had Mettenberger and Murray at the event, and Murray ended up winning. What do I think it means? I think it says far more about Ryan Puglisi than anybody else. We know Kirby Smart's an elite recruiter. We know he's an elite evaluator. We know that their ability to land 5-star and 4-star prospects is unmatched in college football. We know that. What we don't see and what we don't hear of often is 17 and 18-year-old young men staring down competition in the face and just being like, all right, like, fuck it, let's go. Like, I want to go to Georgia, and if I am good enough to beat that guy out, then I'm good enough for anything. And if I'm not good enough to beat him out, then we'll assess that then. But let's not worry about that right now. I mean, it was so easy for Ryan to text people like me back in February, okay, and say, hey, what if, right? What if Dylan Raiola comes? What about, right? And it was so easy for him to stand right then and there and say, oh, I'm a dog. Like, if it happens, I'm still a dog, right? And now it's happened. Now it's here. That dude's coming to Georgia, okay? Dylan Raiola is. And with that, I mean, since the day Dylan Raiola has committed, I guarantee you Ryan Puglisi's phone has been off the hook. It has been blowing up constantly with big-time programs offering big-time things for him to come play big-time, like, playing time at their program. So that dude loves Georgia. That's what it means to me. But I also think it means this. Not that college football wasn't on alert or wasn't on notice, but Kirby Smart has run roughshod over you guys with a walk-on. All right, now I'm a big Stetson Bennett believer, but that is still a 4th-round draft pick. Let's not act like the Rams drafted him 1-1. All right, Kirby Smart's been running roughshod on college football for 2 years, and he's been playing for national titles for 5 now. And he's done so all without his pick of the litter at the quarterback position. And now he's not got 1, he's got 2. He's got the 2 guys on his board. All right, and I have it on good authority that the 3rd one, Julian Sayin, I'm pretty sure he wanted to be a Georgia Bulldog too. Okay, so like they had whatever they wanted to at the quarterback position and more in 2024. And this is a coach who has gotten to where he is as the defensive guy, as the game-managing quarterback guy. That's some scary shit for college football, man, in my opinion. That is some scary, scary stuff. Not to just be the Georgia beat reporter. It was the same thing for Alabama. Alabama was running roughshod on college football with fucking Blake Sims and Jake Coker at quarterback. And then Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones and Bryce Young got in there. And it was a whole nother different level of dominance that occurred once that happened. So I think that's where we are at in the evolution of this, Georgia run, if you will.
Yeah. All right. I 100% agree. I think college football should be pretty scared.
I think, Georgia runs college football at this point.
Yeah. And so #1 recruiting class, going to keep that up. We have Brooks Austin. Thank you very much for staying on here, joining us to talk. All of his links are going to be in the description. His Patreon, his YouTube, his Twitter, Instagram. Make sure to check those out if you haven't already. If you're not coming from Brooks' stuff, then go check him out. You'll learn a lot, and we really appreciate this conversation, being on here, and hopefully you learned something. So we'll see you all in the next one.